in Mago Reddit. Today's story is
My husband deleted some mysterious messages from my phone and disappeared the next day. What I discovered later revealed an elaborate 6-year lie that changed everything. Over the past few weeks, my husband has been behaving strangely, but I didn't think anything of it because we've been together for almost a decade. We've always had a good relationship, so I never thought he had any reason to distrust me. We started our relationship 10 years ago, we got married 8 years ago, and we have 2 children, a 6-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. Our families get on well, we are financially secure, and we had practically no conflicts. I thought our life was wonderful, but apparently it wasn't enough for him, as I recently found out that he has been having an affair for 6 years and has another family in another state. The worst thing is that he has been promising this other woman that he will leave me for almost 6 years, and a few days ago she decided to come and talk to me about it in person. My husband, let's call him Gavin, needs to travel frequently for work, so I never suspected anything when he had to be away for a few weeks every month. However, lately he started traveling much more. He would be away for weeks, and I would hardly hear from him. I found that suspicious because, even when he was busy, he always kept in constant contact with me and the children, but that had changed recently. When I mentioned it to him, he reacted very angrily, telling me that I was interfering with his work and that it was not appropriate. I found that strange too, but I never imagined that it could be related to infidelity. For me, it was simply unthinkable. Then, last week, another strange incident occurred. I was putting on makeup in front of the mirror because I was going out with friends, and my phone was on the bed next to him. It started ringing with message notifications, so I asked him to check it, thinking it would be my friends asking me something. He told me they were just spam messages and deleted them all, arguing that they would take up too much space if he didn't delete them. It didn't seem suspicious to me at the time, so I didn't think anything of it. The next day, he left for work in the morning and never came back. I haven't seen him in person since. I started to worry when he didn't reply to my messages or answer my calls, so I contacted his parents, but they hadn't been able to get in touch with him either. The next day, after 24 hours, I decided to call one of his coworkers to ask about him. He told me that he had indeed been at work that day, but he was working from home, so I knew he was okay because he had attended to his work responsibilities, although he was definitely not at our house. He was simply working remotely. I was about to go to the police, but after talking to his colleague, I realized that he hadn't disappeared, he was just ignoring us all. I tried to contact him more desperately, but got no response. Almost 4 days went by without anyone hearing from him, although he was still working remotely, so I knew he was perfectly fine. I even asked his partner to help me get in touch with him, but he told me that as soon as he called Gavin and mentioned that I wanted to talk to him, he hung up. It was clear that he was avoiding me, and I didn't understand why, which was quite distressing. 4 days later, just when I was about to give up and do something unprofessional like calling the people in his office and asking them to try to get in touch with him, his lover turned up at my house and I got all the answers. This woman, let's call her Helen, arrived in the afternoon and introduced herself as Gavin's girlfriend. I thought it was a joke, but then she showed me numerous photos of her with Gavin on her phone, and that's how I discovered that he had been with her for the last 6 years. They even had a 4-year-old daughter together, and his job didn't require him to travel as much as he did, because he went to see them every month, not for work reasons. Apparently, he had recently had to travel even more because she was getting impatient, as she was pregnant again, and this time she wanted him to leave her for good. They had been arguing a lot about that, and she decided to tell me the truth personally, regardless of the consequences. That's why she had managed to find out my number and had sent me messages the other day, but unfortunately the phone was in the wrong hands at the time and I couldn't see those messages because he deleted them all. As I didn't reply, she thought I wouldn't believe her until she spoke to me in person. She told me that after sending those messages and seeing that I never responded, Gavin showed up the next day to confront her about what she was doing. They had a strong argument about it, she left him, and since then she hasn't heard from him either. It later occurred to her that maybe I hadn't seen those messages because he could have deleted them, so she decided to take a flight, come see me, and tell me the truth in person. It took me a while to accept that he was telling the truth, that this wasn't a bad joke, and shortly afterwards I simply asked him to leave, because I needed time to process it, and she left. I had left the children at my parents' house that day because I felt very disoriented and needed time for myself, and fortunately I did because I ended up crying inconsolably for the next few hours. Then came the anger and, on impulse, I decided to go to my parents' house, see my children, and tell them that their father had been cheating on me, so their parents would most likely separate. They were too young to understand exactly what was going on, but I didn't care at the time. I was so angry that I told them that their father had another family in another state, and that we had all been deceived for years. They probably didn't fully understand what was going on, but I was so upset that they got scared and started crying. I comforted them a little and told them that everything would be all right. Then, when they calmed down, I decided to drive to my in-laws' house and tell them exactly the same thing. Obviously, they understood perfectly well what was happening, but they refused to believe it, saying that it must be some kind of mistake or misunderstanding because Gavin loved me and would never do anything to hurt us and his family. I told them about the photos Helen had shown me and said that I believed her, given how suspiciously he had behaved over the last few days. My father-in-law also became very upset, but I didn't wait to see his reaction. I got back in my car and drove back home. Around midnight, several hours after I had done all this, Gavin finally replied and began to beg for a second chance. He apologized in his message, but didn't specify exactly what he was sorry for, so I decided to call him, and he finally picked up. He was crying and tried to explain things to me, but I didn't even want to give him that opportunity. I told him straight that I would never forgive him, that he could forget about it, that I would file for divorce and make sure he paid for everything he had done. Then I told him that I had already told his parents and the children the truth, and that would be his punishment. As soon as I mentioned that I had told the children, he started acting hysterically, saying that I had no need to do that and that he might never forgive me, but that it wasn't right of me to involve the children. I didn't care what he thought, so I just hung up after letting off steam and then blocked him. But now that the anger has subsided a little and I've spoken to my parents, they told me that while I hadn't done anything wrong by telling their parents, it probably wasn't right to tell the children, not for his sake but for the sake of their own well-being, and now I feel a little guilty about that. Am I the bad person for telling my children that their father cheated on me and has another family in another state? Update 1. Hi, it's been 2 weeks since my last update, and first of all, I felt very guilty about telling my children the way I did because I don't think it was a healthy reaction. I didn't feel bad for their father, but for themselves, because I can't imagine how difficult and uncomfortable it must have been for them to see me behave like that. If I had been in their place, I would probably have been completely scared, so I apologized to them. I tried to make it up to them, and they seemed to have already forgotten about it, but they understood that something was wrong, so they were also very affectionate with me, and I'm glad that, despite being so young, they could be so understanding. My parents told me that after I left that day, the 2 children had been quite upset, and it took them a while to calm them down because they had realized that something was going wrong between their parents, and they seemed very worried. My parents didn't tell me immediately, because they knew I was already going through a lot. They didn't want to make me feel guilty, but they had a serious conversation with me later and told me it wasn't right to react like that. I had already realized it for myself, so fortunately I was able to fix the situation quickly, and I don't think it will have any consequences in the coming weeks. Having said that, I should mention that last week I filed for divorce. It took me a few days to hire the right lawyer, but I chose the best possible option because I really want him to regret what he did. The terms of my petition are extremely strict, and I have no intention of giving in. I don't want to show him any kind of special consideration. Of course, I'm not being completely unfair, but I want what I want, and I don't care what others think of me. I'm going to keep the house, the cars, and everything else we have, as well as asking for financial compensation. I'm not asking for too much in that respect because I don't think he can afford it, but I'm not going to give in on the rest, and I'll make sure I get what I want. As for the children, it took me a while to decide what I wanted regarding their situation, because, to be completely honest, as much as it pains me to admit it now, he has always been a good father to them. The children love their father, and I don't think it's fair to deprive them of a relationship with him. Later on, when they are old enough to understand things for themselves, They will be able to decide if they want to keep in touch with him, and I won't stand in their way. But for now, I think it's important to at least give it a try. More importantly, I don't want to be the kind of mother who keeps her children away from their ex-husband, even if he is unfaithful, because I simply don't want them to grow up resenting me for not having given their relationship a chance. Basically, I don't want to use them as a weapon, so I agree to share custody of the children with him, but he will have to make all the arrangements to see them. I'm not going to make it easy for him at any time. Anyway, that's what I've decided for now. I think he has been notified, but I don't know for sure because he hasn't responded yet, and it's not like he can contact me because I have blocked him everywhere. My in-laws contacted me last week just to ask me to allow them to keep in touch with their grandchildren because regardless of what their son had done, they were ashamed of him. But they were not part of his actions. I told them that I had no intention of taking their grandchildren away from them because I didn't want to punish them for something they didn't participate in. I respect my in-laws. They have always been very kind to me, and I know they don't approve of what their son did. That's enough for me. I don't care if they are his parents as long as they don't support him. I'm fine with them, and honestly, they are good people. I have also asked them to let me know if their son contacts them and to be the means of communication between the two of us in case our lawyers are not available. They have agreed and promised me that as soon as he gets in touch with them, they will let me know. So far that has not happened, but I am being patient for now. The last 2 weeks have been incredibly stressful for me. I am really grateful to my parents and in-laws as they have completely taken care of the children and are looking after them on their own because I have to deal with my work, my emotions, and, honestly, I'm just not in the right state of mind right now. This kind of help is really valuable, and I hope Gavin doesn't complicate things because I just want all this to be over as soon as possible. Update 2. My last update was last week, and 2 days after posting it, Gavin decided to contact me again. I had blocked him everywhere, so he decided to show up at our house, and when I refused to let him in, he started begging at the door. He was on his knees telling me that he was really sorry for everything and that he had been trying to find a way out of this whole mess for the past few weeks. I didn't even want to listen to him, but unfortunately my curiosity got the better of me, and while he tried to reason with me from the porch, I continued to listen. He explained that after he had seen those messages that Helen had sent to my phone, he had deleted them and panicked. So the next day he took a flight to where she lived and tried to reason with her. According to him, he hadn't been happy with her from the start and had always considered their whole affair a mistake. He said he had met her 6 years ago when he was at a conference in her hometown, as they worked in the same field. They had got on well back then, and so began their affair. He had wanted to end it after a few weeks, but by then she was already pregnant and insisted on having the baby, so he was trapped with the responsibility of remaining in her life and did not dare to break up with her. He made it sound like he had been the victim of a pregnancy trap, but I didn't really believe him. Anyway, this has been going on for 6 years, and lately he had been trying to break up with her, but she wasn't willing to let him go, and just out of anger and resentment, she decided to send me messages and try to ruin our marriage. Then, when she was confronted about it, she decided to leave him, and apparently she had also told him that she would make sure to ruin his marriage. After that, he decided to disappear for a few days because he was panicking and didn't know what to do. In the meantime, she came and told me everything, and it all fell apart. He told me he had been a coward for not being able to tell me the truth, but now he was ready to leave everything and everyone behind and come back to me, and all he needed was a second chance. He told me he was willing to leave Helen for good and would never see his daughter again. He would just keep sending money, and that would be enough, because he had had a conversation with Helen, and she didn't want anything to do with him either. So she was going to leave him alone, and all she needed from him was the money. He said this with a lot of bitterness, as if that wasn't what he wanted at all, but I was more concerned about other things. I told him straight away that I didn't want him back either, and I found it disgusting that he had found it so easy to say that he would never see his daughter again, because, whether he liked Helen or not, he couldn't change the fact that his daughter was his own flesh and blood. She was his responsibility, and he should be there for her as a father. The fact that he said so easily that he would never see her again made me question whether I was doing the right thing in agreeing to share custody of our own children with him, and I mean that very seriously. I have nothing against Helen's daughter with Gavin, although I really hate them both. They were both aware of what they were doing, but unfortunately their daughter had no idea what had happened, and it would be really unfair to punish her for something like that. She is the only innocent person in this situation, and I am not someone who likes to play the savior in any way, but in this situation I felt I had to say something, and while I still had influence over him, I decided to use it to make him feel guilty and make sure he didn't abandon his other daughter, because that would never make me happy. As a mother, I am only happy when my children are happy, and I wouldn't want any other child, especially a 4-year-old girl, to suffer something like that. It was quite a spontaneous decision to say that, but it seemed to be effective because he immediately told me that he would do whatever I wanted, but all I had to do was forgive him and promise to give him another chance. I told him that was never going to happen, and if he really loved me, he would just leave me alone now. I told him to go away, to accept the terms of my divorce petition and leave me alone because I was finished with him for good. He started to whine and cry at the door, but I told him I would call the police if he didn't leave, and finally he went away. After that, I didn't hear from him for the next few days until this morning. He had finally responded to the divorce petition and agreed to all the terms, and I couldn't have been happier about it. It just means we'll be finished with the divorce much quicker than if he had contested it or tried to change anything, and for that alone I am grateful to him. At least he's not complicating things any more than he already has, and will finalize the custody arrangement soon too. It will still take a few weeks for the divorce to become official, but I'm fine with waiting because at least I won't have to undergo mediation or negotiations, as I had previously feared. However, just because he's given up fighting me over the divorce doesn't mean he's given up on us completely. A few hours ago, I received an email from a very random address, and when I started reading it, I immediately realized that it had to be him. He began by apologizing to me once again for everything he had put me through, for everything he had put the children through too, and he said he regretted it more than anything else in his life. He said that he had not been able to be honest or good, either to me or to Helen, and he was really ashamed of that, but to make up for it, he was going to do everything possible to be a good father to all his children, and he hoped that at least we could have a shared parenting arrangement without problems, and maybe at some point in the future I would find it in my heart to forgive him for everything he had done wrong. He also mentioned that, as he had said that if he really loved me, he would leave me alone and not complicate the divorce, he had done exactly that, and he wanted me to know that even when he was with Helen, all he could think about was always me, and he always felt guilty about it. In the end, he told me that he really loved me and always would, and he was willing to wait for the rest of his life for me to come back, and even if I didn't, he would still love me. It seemed like a very strange email to me, so after reading it, I decided to mark it as spam so I wouldn't have to look at it again because it just made me feel very uncomfortable. I don't even know what to think about it, to be honest, but at least he did what I asked for with the divorce petition, and that's all I care about right now. Update 3. I am officially divorced now. The divorce became effective last week, and I am finally free. We have also finalized the custody agreement. As I said, he will have partial custody. He will have the children every other weekend because he will have to spend the rest of the weekends with his daughter, with Helen. I am fine with that because it means I can spend more time with the children. They are a bit strange with him at the moment. They don't know what to expect. They don't understand what's going on, but they do perceive that their parents are no longer together, and it's very unlikely that they will see us together again. Their confusion is heartbreaking, but there's really nothing I can do, although at least they seem happy to be able to see their father, even if the situation is more awkward than it used to be. I guess they'll eventually get used to this too. They are still very young and have their whole lives ahead of them, so this is just a small blip on their horizon. As for their grandparents, they have all been very supportive, including my in-laws who have completely cut off communication with their son, although I told them that I didn't mind if they continued to keep in touch with him because all I had ever wanted was for me to stay away from him. I didn't really care what anyone else did about their relationship with him, but I'm glad they're so firmly behind me that they don't even want to talk to him. Our friends are also now aware of everything that has happened because I saw no reason to sugarcoat things and hide the truth. They too are not in a position to talk to him, and I am really very glad about that, because it simply means that I won't have to hear about him from anyone else. I am quite relieved that things have come to an end, because the last few months have been very stressful for me. Now I can finally begin to adapt to my new life, and I am going to start by taking some time off work and traveling with my children. I've already started preparing for a vacation. It will be a short one because I have to go back to work, but I'm still going to try to make the most of it. I think it's a well-deserved break. I've earned it after everything I've been through, and it will help me gain some perspective and just breathe a little. When I get back, I'm also planning to start therapy because I think I really need it. Update 4. Hi. It's been a while since my last update, almost 2 years, but I discovered something really curious and I felt I had to share it with you. You may remember the email I mentioned in one of my updates where Gavin had basically said he was committed to me forever, that he was never going to move on and would love me for the rest of his life, and I didn't take it seriously. I guess I was right to do so because I recently heard some rumors from friends who said that he got engaged last week, and today he and his new fiancée posted a pregnancy announcement. It's really ironic, and I just hope he's doing well financially, because otherwise I don't even know how he's affording to have so many children and women in his life. Anyway, it's none of my business as long as my children are happy and healthy, and they seem to be doing well so far. They are not as attached to him as they used to be, but they are still kind and respectful to him, and that is enough for me. After all, I can't expect them to be so attached to him since they only see him a couple of weekends every month. Once the new baby is born, I don't even know how he's going to handle all these children, but my children probably won't even care so much, so I'm fine with that. We're all good. I still have a good relationship with his parents, and they still don't talk to him. My parents have been trying to set me up for a while, but I'm happily single at the moment. Being a mother is more important to me than anything else. I have been on a few dates in the last few months, but it has been nothing serious, and I am completely fine with that. It will happen when it has to happen, and even if it doesn't, I am still happy.